The wicked hatred of the Jewish people rearing its ugly head all across the globe. Yesterday, hundreds of protesters stormed an airport in Russia when a plane coming from Israel landed. Local media reported the anti-Israeli mob was made up of mostly men who were hunting for Israeli passengers and pulling their passports. Some in the mob were holding signs that read, quote, "We are against Jewish refugees," and "Child killers are not welcome." And here in the United States, a seething hatred of Jews seen on American streets and all over college campuses. Over the weekend, Cornell University rushed campus police to a Jewish center. Authorities say a series of anti-Semitic posts on an online discussion board depicted graphic threats of murder and sexual violence against Jewish students. The messaging board was not affiliated with the university. The FBI is now investigating this as a possible hate crime. Also at Cornell University, an associate professor, Russell Rickford, is now on leave of absence after praising Hamas terror attacks.
It was exhilarating. It was energizing. And if they weren't exhilarated by this challenge to the monopoly of violence, by this shifting of the balance of power, then they would not be human.
Rickford would later apologize for the, quote, "horrible choice of words," he said, end of quote. As an aside, I wonder, is that a real apology or just one of those when someone is sorry that he got caught? And an organization that coordinates security for Jewish communities is reporting that college campuses have seen, quote, "an alarming rise of anti-Semitic incidents." Since the October 7th terror attack on Israel, the group has logged 94 incidents on campuses and 614 other incidents across our nation. Last week, we reported about the disgraceful Cooper Union College horror. Jewish students forced to lock themselves inside a library after anti-Israeli protesters blocked the doors and banged on them. Anti-Israel sentiment also seen at Harvard, where 34 student groups rushed to condemn America's ally Israel after it got attacked by Hamas. On Friday, Harvard's president announced that the university has created an advisory council to combat anti-Semitism. Harvard law professor emeritus and author of the book Get Trump, Alan Dershowitz, joins me. Alan, I have to start with your school, Harvard. The president's creating an advisory council to combat anti-Semitism. What in the world is that? How is that going to correct the atrocities we've seen on Harvard, the anti-Semitism?
Well, it's going to correct only one thing. It's going to try to get more Jewish donors to give money to Harvard. That's what she seems to care about. Statement only after Jewish donors threaten to cut off any funding. Let's Harvard. These kids who signed these statements while people were still bleeding to death from the rapes and the murders, these are Hitler's youth. These are the same as the people who conducted Kristallnacht 85 years ago next week. These are the same people who fought for the Ayatollahs to come to power. Students have been responsible for some of the worst bloodbaths and abuses in history. Stalin relied on children. Hitler relied on college students. There's no excuse. These are Hitler's youth. They're on the wrong side of history. And the president of Harvard refuses to condemn them. She's now finally, after a lot of pressure, been willing to condemn Hamas, but she's not willing to condemn Hitler's youth among her students and among her faculty. And until she does that, I urge everybody to stop contributing to Harvard, to Yale, to the City University of New York, to the University of Pennsylvania. Send your contributions to decent organizations that know the difference between right and wrong.
All right, tell me this. Okay, I know there's been, like first time, I know from history about anti-Semitism, of course, the Holocaust, and I know that anti-Semitism continued to exist in different forms over the decades to follow. But what I didn't realize, which October 7th is that when you peel back the scab in this country, the level of vitriol against Jews. Why do these people hate? Why the hate against Jews? It's just incredible. We see that, they've all been exposed now.
It's because of their professors and because of administrators. And part of it is because of what happened in the reckoning following the death of George Floyd. Every university has created departments of anti-Semitism through their diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's diversity, equity, and exclusion. Jews are excluded. And many of these campaigns are led by students who see themselves as part of the oppressed, even though they're among the wealthiest people probably on campus, the children of billionaires, many of them. But they see themselves as part of the intersectionality and oppressed, and they take it out on Jews. But let's remember, 18-year-old students are expelled if they engage in plagiarism. They don't make an excuse, we didn't know we were writing. These students have to be held accountable. And I want the name of every student who held up signs that said, clean the country of Jews. That's a Hitler sign, putting a Star of David into a garbage pail. These neo-Nazis have to be called out for what they are. They cannot be hired by law firms. Would you want any client to be represented by somebody who supported the raping and murder of this woman who was carried through the streets naked and shown off to cheering Hamas crowds? That's what these students are supporting. And we have to know who they are to know not to hire them and not to allow our clients to be represented by them.
Alan Dershowitz, thank you, sir.
Thank you.